New video. Hassan gets a lot of hate from the left and right for his consumerism. For this video, I'm talking about our left's relation with the consumer capitalism and ask if it's pointless to be an ethical consumer as much as we can. Yeah, I watched pieces of it.
Only exist.
I watched like the main part where it was like he was just like talking about my materialism, right? And like I said, I don't think it was like bad. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think this was like a disagreement. I don't think he was like trying to. I mean, you can make up your mind on it if you want, and go watch it. But ultimately, know who linked the shit? It's okay. It's not a problem. Like, it's entirely all about envy at the end of the day. They just don't want to admit it. They have to have what you have, but they're upset that anyone on their side is not suffering the exact ways that they do. Instead of agreeing that everyone should have opportunities and commodities you do, easier to be mad at you than yell at the unchanging system. Yeah. No, I don't think he's like he's a hater or anything like that. For the record.
I don't want to partake in this system. I don't want to be complicit. I don't think everything in your life has to be about changing the world. I think sometimes it is what makes you feel better about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, he did a whole post about like how he rejects materialism, right? It's just like, okay, that's your personal preference. It's not mine. You know what I mean?
Possible, but now we're going to get into Hassan. So a lot of left-wing people absolutely hate Hassan. I don't personally hate him. I think he's a net positive, but I do think sometimes his response to criticism is really bad. He's explained
like this comes from just not really watching me all that much, but watching other people react to me, because I hear this all the time. Hassan hates criticism. He's like, he doesn't respond well to criticism. It's the bullshit.
Why? Because he feels like so much of it is bad faith. Now, lots of people meme on him and make fun of him, especially right-wing people, because they're like, well, this is the king of the socialists. The king of the socialists who spends $1,000 on a Gucci shirt he'll wear once and buys a car for $200,000, or, you know, pays $140,000.
Respond to criticism then? I mean, I do regularly. I do respond to criticism regularly. I respond to criticism in my chat probably 8 hours a day, but on top of that, I do respond to criticism regularly.
Later and stuff. And I know this is old drama now, but I want to go through it, and I
also think there's a lot here that comes from the Twitch income links when you spoke about this. I feel like there's something going on. I feel like there's something in the news. I don't know. I woke up immediately. My timeline is like people defending me, people shitting on me. It's wild. And then I start seeing the messages and I'm like, oh boy, here we goes again. Another day of wonderful discourse here at twitch.tv. That's right, folks. New controversy just dropped. We're getting right into it, dude. Everybody knows how much money I make, at least in this community. It's up there for a reason. For those of you who are unaware, there was a massive data breach over at Twitch, and its source code is out in the wild. I don't even know how the website is up right now. I don't know how the it's working, but this morning I woke up to a 125 gigabyte data leak. I don't even know how protected my information is on Twitch. I don't know anything, but according to a report by Chris Smalls made a point in your favor about materialism, and he's done more for working people than 99% of leftists ever will. VGC, an anonymous hacker, posted 125 gigs of torrent. No cap, this Cavernicle's portrayal of you in past videos definitely helped me reassess a lot of bad faith criticism other creators had regarding you and other controversies. All I'm going to say is this. Whenever a motherfucker says Hassan is rich and a leftist, and that's fucked up, look to what they're doing. Are you a stevedore? Are you working in the docks? No, you're doing what I'm doing. Okay? You know what I mean? Like, what if you if you are doing what I'm doing, okay? Whether it be a Substack or a coffee or a fucking a Twitter posting job that you want to turn into an inevitable podcast, okay? That means you ultimately do not have a disagreement in the way that this service is being produced. Because that's what you're doing. You're doing the same thing I'm doing. You know what I mean? You get it? The fuck? I'm tweeting from the mimes with children and you're a hypocrite. Yeah. Oh man, motherfuckers made literally pages for this. Look up your names. Yeah. I once started clipping Hassan receiving criticism and responding to it, and haters didn't give a fuck, saying someone doesn't take criticism well is just a bullshit excuse that sounds reasonable that they don't actually have to back up with evidence. Yeah. As a person who isn't super materialistic, if you want a luxury commodity, that's fine, and that's not a pro-capitalist endorsement. It's just a feckless commodity consumption. As a person, yeah, that is exactly what it is. But let's
let
continue.
Hassan kind of explain himself, and then just talk about like how, as leftists, we should even feel about someone like this who clearly does good work in a lot of ways, educates people in a lot of ways. Like recently had like Lowell overruled on explaining about prison abolition. Like you can't say Hassan is doing damage, and maybe you can say even the aesthetic is appealing to people because he seems like a normal, like rich celebrity. But then I'm going to get into some of the criticisms as well, and we'll look at him responding to the backlash for his shirt and for the car. Twitch streamer Hassan came under fire after he wore a $1,000 outfit at Coachella, which critics argued went against his socialist views. He hit back saying it's wild how he's been made the villain in this dispute. So let's have a look at him respond to the shirt and the car.
Like, look at this. She literally said, Hassan bad, my outfit good, I'm a better leftist. 68,000 likes. I know where it comes from with right-wingers. Like, oh, socialism is when no money. Socialism is a poverty cult. Socialism is a poverty cult. Dude, I never said I don't like luxury shit, okay? I mean, the shirt was not a good purchase regardless. When I am a normie-facing leftist content creator, perhaps the only one who is not a weirdo. I'm just a normal dude. So all of the abnormal weirdos that are permanently online are like, he's not behaving in the way that we would want. The idea that you're a good leftist or a bad leftist revolves around like how you spend your money is so stupid. People think you're just a performative socialist. I don't, but that's okay, fine. Like, who cares? Yeah, I'm a fake. I'm not real. I'm not a socialist. I'm a capitalist. Okay, I love capitalism. Num, 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 num. The reason why I got Gucci shirt, which is incredibly expensive and felt disgusting. Not that it matters. I can buy whatever the I want, and anyone that gets mad at that can suck me from the back. So I was like, by the way, they say this is a bad response to criticism. And yeah, it's not a good response to criticism from your perspective because you do legitimately think it's like insane that I bought an expensive shirt, right? But like the reality is that's ridiculous. You would never do this for any other content creator, okay? Do you see what I'm saying? You would never do this for any other content creator. So of course I'm going to react this way because I don't think these are valid criticisms. Why am I supposed to sit there and go, you know what? Thank you for literally looking at an Austin Ox meme and getting very upset about it. That was paired up with like a photo of me hitching a fucking ride to New York with the Dobrik vlog squad from like 6 fucking years ago. It's not valid. Like, not every type of criticism is actually valid. You know what I mean? I don't mind you liking this stuff. I just don't watch the show for fashion stuff and buying cars, to be honest. I love your stuff though. Exactly. I want to get something. I want to get something nice. Okay. I want to get something nice. We're at Coachella. This is going to be douchey. Every celebrity, every famous person, everyone that has a decent amount of money at some point has worn Gucci. There's not a single person getting mad at them. So I went and I bought the shirt, and the shirt is very expensive, but that was the reasoning behind it. In the grand scheme of things, 200K isn't even that much. No, it's a lot of money, man. You're crazy. Like, don't be this person either, okay? Like, don't be the type of person who's like saying 200K isn't that much. Of course, it's a lot of money. It's not $200,000. It's like, the car itself is $140,000, okay? Like, if we're talking about actual numbers. It's a load of money, man. Are you crazy? Most people don't make that kind of money in a year. Are you insane? Of course it's a lot of money. So here's the thing I don't get. Like, do people think that I'm saying this to, like, flex? Or do people think that or do people understand that I'm, like, correcting a chatter who I think is, like, saying the wrong thing in defense of me? Like, I don't want you to go out and say like, oh, that's not that much money, whatever. Like, no, it's just That is objectively a lot of money to spend on a car. So I do understand why people go, what the fuck? I can't believe you have that much money. No, it is. It is. It is a lot of money. Like, don't be delusional, you know? That, of course. It is. I did lease the Porsche, but I could have fucking bought it. I could have bought fucking 10 Porsches. Like, it's ridiculous. Totally an abundant purchase. It's a luxury car. I'm 30 years old, you know? I don't want to be like a 50-year-old guy and then finally be like, you know what? I'm going to have a nice car now. Like, no. No matter what I got, people were going to be mad. For example, if I were to have bought a cheaper car, if I were to have gone with another Toyota, they were going to say I'm LARPing as a poor person. Like, I'm LARPing and LARPing as a poor and trying to make it seem like I'm a poor person to be more relatable.
So do I hate Hassan for buying a 1K Gucci shirt and a 200K car? No. Would I do that if I was him? Like, would I feel comfortable doing that? No, as well. So I want to talk about that because I've outlined how I'm not materialistic. I would never spend that amount of money on anything, even if I was as rich as him. But it is a guy who seems to like the life of celebrity.
So that's the thing, like, but that's not criticism. Like, I don't think this like says anything about a particular individual. And also, we have no way of knowing that either, for the record. But it doesn't matter. I don't, like I said, this guy's not a hater. So everybody calm down.
And it's not a guy who is socialist because he hates consumer capitalism. He very much enjoys consumer capitalism more than most of us do because he's allowed to. And you guys can ask yourself, if you were that rich, would you do what he does? I personally wouldn't, but a lot of you might say, hell yeah, I would buy like loads of cars. I would spend all that money and I would flex all the time, which is fine. He made a good point as well in a tweet afterwards. He says, like, Markiplier has this reputation as being an amazing guy, way wealthier than me, and no one ever criticizes him. But I can see both sides, really, because there's been lots of socialists throughout history, communist revolutionaries, who have come from, like, wealthy backgrounds. And sometimes you need that because they need to be removed from everything so they can actually write the political theory. Like, Karl Marx was bankrolled by Engels, who was a very wealthy man, right? If I'm going to give fair criticism to Hassan, I respect a lot of the good work he does. I respect a lot of the people he has on his stream. I respect a lot of the ways he teaches his audience about things. Out of all the political...
Man, I respect Asmongold. He knows he has money and now takes no money from Twitch. Is that something you would ever think about doing? You think Asmongold takes no money from Twitch? What? Like, you think Asmongold streams for free? Like, he makes no money at all on Twitch? There's no better example of, like, people fucking falling for aesthetics. Asmongold isn't doing this deliberately either, by the way. He's just living his fucking life. But, like, you look at like the way he presents himself on stream, authentically himself, just like I do, and you see that he is living in like a regular house that he's lived in for a very long time, and all this stuff. And you think like, oh no, he's like, what, like streaming for no fucking. He streams on an alt, no ads, no subs, lol. First of all, there's still ads that run on it, even if he doesn't run the ads himself. And secondly, he makes a shitload from his fucking YouTube, probably. It's just a different form of generating revenue. Like, Asmongold has more money than I do, man. I don't know what you're talking about. He also owns multiple companies, like, and there's nothing wrong with that, for the record. I just want you to understand, like, there's actually nothing wrong with the way Asmongold does things. Anyway, let's continue.
Twitch streamers, I would say he's actually one of the best, who has politics that fit in more with my own. But like I was saying earlier, I still think if you are like an actual socialist who wants socialism on the path to communism, don't know if he does, then I think you still have to kind of like live your morals. Like, we all have hypocrisies here and there. Like a 200k car, and I know he jokingly flexed it and stuff, but when loads of your audience are just like young working class people, and you're teaching them this theory, and then you're buying very material things and kind of like showing them off, like a 1K shirt you're never gonna wear.
The only flexes anyone has ever seen from you is Asanox tweets lol. There are some people who see influencer adjacent social media posts and immediately calls them flexing. Yeah. Also, why would you work for no returns? That goes directly against your worldview. Yeah. For the record, for that chatter who might be a little misunderstood, like he probably doesn't understand it. What you just said is like the exact opposite. Socialism, if anything, is quite literally about getting more of the value that you generate back from your bosses. Okay? That's what that's about. Like, it quite literally is that. It's getting the bag, if you want to think about it like that. That's not capitalism. Okay?
Where again, I don't think it's personally like the worst thing ever, but it just speaks to your worldview, and that's why people might have a problem with it. Like I said, Hassan, net benefit, net...
I wonder if this take extends to someone slightly less wealthy than you. Like, should a middle-class person feel bad about owning a house when there are homeless people? Should a working-class person feel bad about having a job when someone doesn't? Where is the line? There is no line. It's just vibes-based for the most part. And most things are. So I don't really have that big of an issue with it. I feel like the only criticism that can come from luxury spending as a socialist is if the person does not donate. I guess. I think no matter what happens, it's very hard to escape the notion that, like, you are supposed to be Jesus if you're a socialist. You're supposed to be a good guy. And what good guy is what I think it is. What my values are, or what I have ascribed to socialism. That's what it is.
Positive. But my main problem is if this is what you're teaching people, there's a limit in how they will reimagine society. And that's what we actually have to do as left-wing people. I'm not advocating for Bernie.
For the record, I've said this before. If I lived in a city where there's public transit, I would never have a fucking car. Okay? I do not live in a city where there is public transit. I live in Los Angeles, California, where you need a car. That's it. If I lived in a city where there are, like, where, you know, it's mostly public housing. If I lived in Vienna, I'd be living in public housing. That's it. 65% of Vienna housing is public. And it's plenty nice. You know what I mean? So ultimately, I am living inside of the standards around where I choose to live. So the idea that, like, you know, how could this work in a socialist utopia or anything? What is this? Can't the line be being a multimillionaire? Lol, you want to really sweat that? Yes, a single millionaire is also the line. Okay. This sounds like someone who's bought into the socialism as a poverty cult. I don't have means, so I don't want means, but nobody should want means. Kind of the opposite of owning the means and taking it back.
Sanders to become president, and then everything will be right in the world. I'm not advocating for Jeremy Corbyn to become prime minister. I'm not even advocating for the UK becoming like Denmark or something, because I see that as the path to a different future. And countries like the UK, Denmark, they only exist because of the global capitalist exploitation. And I've actually seen some other left-wing streamers saying, like, I want everyone to have an iPhone, like the same iPhone as me. And that fundamentally is the wrong way to look at how we're going to change, like, the fundamental inequality of the world.
Wait, what? No, it's not. No, that absolutely is not. Wait, what? What, is he like a degrowth guy? Like, I don't get it. Is that... I don't really know enough about his, like actual ideology or anything, but that's... What? Unless he's, like, literally a degrowth guy, this would be a very weird take, because, like, no, everyone can have some form of, like, a PC in their pocket I mean, the entire problem is like how that extraction of the fucking minerals work currently in the third world, and how it relies on third world exploitation rather than more ethical standards that we could place. That's I don't really get that at all.
Because we don't want to give everyone consumer capitalism. We don't want everyone to have the same consumer capitalist lifestyle of me or even Hassan. We don't even want that to be possible, because at this moment, there is not enough resources in the world. The planet can't even sustain wealthy countries having this lifestyle. How would it sustain the whole entire world? What we have to recognize is we're going to have to give up some privileges as Western consumers if we want equality at all. And that goes beyond that we actually exist in this consumer capitalism relative world because we exploit poor people. And this whole thing goes actually into companies like Gucci, clothes companies, where we exploit the labor of poor countries so we can have these nice consumer capitalist things. So yes, I appreciate Hassan, but my problem sometimes with a lot of American leftists is that I think because America has this such aspirational culture of I must make it, I must climb the ladder, I must buy all these things to show my wealth, where the UK kind of has like this class system where it's like know your place peasant. I think sometimes what's missing from the American leftist like understanding of how we achieve things like socialism and communism is a fundamental rejection of consumer capitalism, not just because it's unethical, but it's because you're playing into capitalist realism where you're normalizing this and you think the mark of progress.
If he thinks that I'm normalizing consumer culture, I think he like I don't agree with that at all. Like I'm existing in the same space that he's existing in, okay? We live in a world where me as a singular individual has absolutely zero capacity to like undermine global capitalism with my actions. Oh, I don't really understand that at all. Also, by his logic, working class Westerners are benefiting from capitalism. They are. It's called, yeah, they are. You are a part of the labor aristocracy. You are still significantly, you are. That is true. There is truth to that. Now, there's two ways to go about it if you are a propagandist. Okay? There's two ways to go about it. To live an ascetic lifestyle, okay? And live by Spartan means and promote yourself as this socialist Jesus, or to just be a normal person, okay, who isn't making like, you know, I'm not buying like a fucking jet ski or some shit, you know what I mean, that I'm never gonna fucking be on top of even, okay? But like socialist Jesus, so Jesus, yeah, exactly. He's implicitly endorsing the idea that technological innovation is exclusive to capitalist consumerism. Exactly. Things like the iPhone and everything else are made by workers. Okay, the problem there is not the iPhone itself and its existence, and the problem is not like what the iPhone signifies. It's the way that that commodity is produced. That is the issue. That's what you're supposed to change. Okay? How are you not buy designer shit? So you're saying it should be normal? I know you're a big iPhone guy, but I don't think he's especially owning smartphones. Just everyone owning iPhones specifically is a bit silly as they're on the more designer expensive side, I think at least. The iPhone and the Android are priced competitively. There are cheaper versions of both. But the idea that like the newest Androids are somehow cheaper than the newest iPhone is just completely incorrect. The goal is to get to a place where like it's being designed and made in a way that is both sustainable and also the workers that are making it are they have ownership over the means of production. That's it. No jet ski? Okay, you're good then. What a wild statement. Jet ski is just one example of something that like I don't need. Or fucking a yacht. Or a private jet. Okay? Like you're hyper focusing on like one example that I used and trying to like laser in on it to make it seem like that is like all I'm saying. Oh, you buy a jet ski, you're rich. That's it. No, that's not what I mean. Okay. I don't think that you could disavow all capitalist commodity consumption anyway. Like that's impossible. That's why we say there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, because there isn't. So I don't know.
Rest for the world is every country reaching the same level of consumption, like I said, which is fundamentally unethical and also would destroy the planet. So someone like Hassan,
he's not wrong about this, but like there is not something I can do as an individual that, and it's not a standard that he places upon himself either. If adjusted to his own current income and on his own current financial status, he is not meeting the standards that he presents either. The only difference between him and myself is that I just have more money than he does. We do the same thing. We make content. You know what I mean? So from that standpoint, and this goes for everyone with a Ko-Fi, everyone with a Substack, everyone with a Patreon that is like saying similar things, it's just like everyone buys useless shit. You know what I mean? Everyone buys useless shit within their own means. And that's a perfectly normal part of existence. The people that say, Hassan, I can't believe you bought that, will then go and buy a Warhammer figurine. You know what I mean? That's an expensive hobby. There's nothing wrong with that. I think this is more so just a misunderstanding, a disagreement, and a misunderstanding born out of that disagreement. That's what I'm saying. A degrowth conversation centered around Hassan specifically is often utilized as an out for working class people not to participate in it. It's not just the price of the good that's bad, it's the good itself. A lot of people in this chat have bought expensive computers, for example. To another person, they would turn around and say, that's not good for me. Why did you do that? I don't need a computer, so why did you go out of your way and purchase an expensive computer? Well, he wanted to purchase it, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? That's it. Most people, like, I've never met a person that hasn't, done that. But if they did, turn around and say, like, no, I actually don't buy anything. I just, like, live literally off the ground and I dumpster dive for my food. And it's the most ethical way of, and the most sustainable way of existence. Is like, well, why are you doing that? You definitely don't need to. You know? Buying a computer isn't conspicuous consumption. I feel like that's the issue here, not buying expensive items.
Buy what you want, do what you want. I still think you do good work. And also I hear the criticism of he's just like teenagers first leftists they see. He's not there to make them all radical communists, which is fine as well. But I'm saying sometimes because of the parasocial aspects, Hassan's ideology will become their own ideology. And then it's hard to move them out of that. You see that so much with Twitch streaming communities in that they literally just become clones of the Twitch streamer and can't really actually have.
Can you explain why billionaires buying private jets and things like that isn't okay then? Or is that okay because it's within their means? Well, I do have my disagreement with billionaires does not revolve around them buying private jets and yachts. I think you understand that if you've spent enough time here. My disagreement with billionaires revolves around how they've become billionaires. Okay? In a perfectly structured, perfectly organized economy, okay, in a socialist economy, they would not be a billionaire, okay? That's the point, because you cannot make $1 billion through your own wages, or you cannot make $1 billion if you are engaging in some level of profit sharing rather than keeping profits to yourself. That's the point. Now, I'm gonna keep playing this video. I think it's important to distinguish. I know my question seems silly to chat, but it does help. Thank you. Yeah. It's not even an issue. They fundamentally misunderstand socialism. Marx talked about how hobbies and interests are important and enjoying life is needed. How to spend your actual earned money isn't the problem. Yeah. No, precisely the case. Like, I want people to have the same level of autonomy and independence that I have been fortunate enough to have. You know what I mean? It's a purely philosophical and ideological discussion. Westerners can't have cheap iPhones, fast food, and there would absolutely be no need for declining consumption for workers to get their fair share. It's not a question of strategy, but ideology. Hassan, this is stupid to entertain. These people hate you for several reasons, but are all misplaced anger or for the clicks. You wanting them to stop hating you is admirable, wholesome, but that's not happening. I don't think this person hates me. That's why I'm looking at this. I rarely ever look at like YouTube videos like this. But the reason why I'm showing this to you is because I don't think this person is just like Hassan bad. He bought like a lot. I know that we are so conditioned in this community, and I myself am conditioned into thinking like all fucking criticism of this nature is usually oftentimes bad. Oh shit, I thought she was about to pee. I got so fucking scared. Okay? You do agree with not participating in pure capitalist behavior. You refuse to do trading. You're not a landlord or an entrepreneur. You just stop there and it's perfectly fine. I think it's also fine to push those anti-capitalistic sentiments further. Yeah. And I say that, but I have a 401k, you know what I mean? Or an IRA, I guess. I think that's what it's called. And I do think that you should as well, because you still have to live within the system that you are existing in. Okay? Like, socialism doesn't mean that, like, you don't have a fucking, if you don't have a pension, there's nothing you can do. You're fucked. You know what I mean? You just die. Once you are no longer a productive laborer, you die. That's not what I'm saying. Okay? You should do that. And I tell you all the time, you should save for retirement. But ultimately, we've moved beyond at that point. We've moved beyond the main point of contention.
Handle positions that go beyond that. So now I just want to talk about the politics. So I had something on Gucci, and it was about
hold on,
Gucci hiring contractors.
I'll be back in a second. I gotta take Kaya out.
Paying like sweatshop workers €2 an hour, and this just talks about all these Chinese immigrants who go over there and they make the fashionable brands. They're actually called like ghosts because no one actually wants to see them in Italian society because it's so xenophobic. But I wanted to focus on a more extreme example. So $26 a month, Ethiopians are being paid the world's lowest wages to make your Calvin Kleins. Ethiopia is trying to become the new Bangladesh of garment factory labor by promising the lowest wages in the world, but the workers themselves report they're struggling to survive on $26 a month while stitching clothes for Calvin Klein, H&M, and other brands. In 2015-16, Ethiopia built the state-owned Hawassa Industrial Park. The park currently has 25,000 employees producing garments for brands like Levi's, Guess, and Tommy Hilfiger. Meanwhile, the influx of workers has driven up the cost of accommodation. A single room within a few km of the park costs about $52 a month. One young woman showed us the concrete ground floor room she and 3 fellow workers rent from a homeowner. There's no toilet, only an open air latrine nearby. The woman said she and her roommates work different shifts and she had some of her belongings stolen. Sometimes she added there's no food left when she returns from work. All 4 women sleep on thin mattresses on the floor. When it rains, water seeps into the living space. We heard from others at the park that some employers hand out plastic sheets, which employees place between their mattress and the concrete floor in an attempt to stay dry. An October 2017 survey told of workers fainting from hunger, as well as being too tired from walking 3 hours a day to come to work and go back home, and the lack of energy and fainting due to the workers not eating properly because they cannot afford to eat 2 meals per day. I'm sure there are good videos about like fast fashion and designer fashion and how it's all built on this really cheap labor from the poorest countries in the world. Bangladesh is a big one that makes clothes at like Primark.
I think this part of the argument is like probably one of the worst angles because I suspect, I don't know if you mentioned this, but that means you can't wear anything that's made in the West, first of all, like that's made by any brand whatsoever, but including like the shirt that he's currently wearing. You know what I mean? Like he's currently wearing a jersey. You know what I mean? I guess technically the only thing that you could wear is Hasanabi merch because like that's made domestically manufactured by union labor. You know what I mean? So, and that is the main difference. Like, what's the difference if you purchase an abundant amount of mediocre price items that collectively equal the value of one large purchase, such as someone buying 5 Supreme jackets that they equal the value of 1 Gucci shirt? Like, what's the... Every single thing. His argument is that you're rich enough to afford something non-exploitative, so you should do that. Yeah, that's ridiculous. I think that it is ridiculous. Especially because, I mean, he also made this argument about the fucking $140,000 car, right? That I leased, the Porsche. That is made by unionized German factory labor. It is environmentally better than a regular gas guzzler. And yet he didn't have an issue with that. And he was actually criticizing that when in fact that in and of itself was me, I guess, doing that. That in and of itself was me buying something that is more ethical. But he's also doing that thing where he talks about you and talks about something horrible in the same breath. He's not saying you are doing this, but is associating this with you. Yeah, like, I know reading is lame, but if any person in the chat is interested, here's an article on luxurious communism by a French philosopher. I think the concept goes along perfectly with this discussion, especially the part about the aesthetic vocation of communism.
And now Ethiopia making these designer clothes. And like I said, although in Western countries we are all exploited under capitalism, we also have to remember the global exploitation between countries and brands from like Western countries and poorer countries like this, which are significantly worse off, and they can get away with more labor violations and paying them less, and often the result is also worse quality as well. But capitalism does not care about that. It's all about profit. And although the story I'm telling you is like nothing new, that's how everyone knows the saying, no ethical consumption under capitalism. I think sometimes as consumers, we have to be aware, like all these designer brands, they're being made in Ethiopian sweatshops. And in that,
For
do
the
you
longest
really want to play into materialism where you'll spend a lot of money on designer clothes, while you also know it's being made with really coercive and exploitative labor, where 4 women have to sleep in the same apartment, which costs a significant amount of their monthly allowance, and it has like no toilet, and you know, it really is a terrible place to live. So that's my main thing, is that
it does go back to making consumerism your moral compass. Like it's just like it's the most significant signifier of your values is what you consume, whether it be like the movies that you watch, or whether it be the clothes that you own, which of course, ironically, again, he's currently wearing a jersey, and who chooses slave labor, by the way? Yeah, first of all, everyone uses slave labor. The point I'm trying to make is that it's not just Gucci that does this. It's not acceptable, okay? But their labor practices, the labor practices that any mega corporation is engaging in, or any corporation in general is engaging in, is pretty consistent. That's the whole point beyond that's the whole point behind this statement. There's no ethical consumption. Okay?
there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. But with someone like Hassan buying something so throwaway, like £1,000 Gucci shirt, that's what I kind of mean.
Also, it's not even a throwaway. I've worn that shirt a lot. I wear it all the time. It's become a meme in and of itself. But that, you know, even if I didn't, it's kind of odd.
When you have to just like live your values a bit more, because he probably knows that designer clothes are made with exploitative labor, and he's also helping perpetuate an ideology of materialism. And I just think, as left-wing people, especially as influential left-wing people,
okay, you can't on the one hand say it's like luxury clothing and then simultaneously say it's throwaway. And also I don't like this argument basically says like anything above my pay grade that I'm currently at is unethical, but the current pay grade that I'm at is currently ethical. Like, I'm purchasing clothing that is made with slave labor because I have no other alternative. Hassan is purchasing clothing made with slave labor, but he has an alternative because he should not do that. He should be like doing a massive read on every brand that he purchases from. He's saying you treat it as a throwaway, which I'm not, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not doing that either. I don't know why he's like saying that. But ultimately, including the very jersey that he's wearing is created in an identical capacity. So I don't really understand why he's saying that like there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, but Hassan should actually act ethically and consume ethically. I think you're mostly right, but it's a decent critique that since you have the means, maybe you should make an effort to buy clothes not made by slaves, even promote those brands to us. Well, that's funny that you should mention that, because there is a part of my life where I do have control over that when I make my own merchandise, which is absolutely something I've done. So that argument falls on its face when you bring that up, unless you're just like arguing that everything that we should be doing, like all the clothes that you should be wearing are just ones that I have made. Hasanabi merchandise, which is not even a fucking ad, because the real ad comes at the top of the hour when there's a 3-minute ad break. And if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you can do for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. We know and love you for your merch, but I think Chatter's saying, why don't you buy more ethical clothing? Because I don't even know where to begin. Okay? I don't even know where to begin. It's clothing. Like 99% of clothing is done inside of the same fucking slave labor shops, inside of the same factories. And even if I were to turn around and other than when I'm making clothing, which is a different point of contention, which is why I don't do that. Okay? Which, by the way, if you'd like to take control over your life and no longer see the do it on stream law, yeah, I don't, hold on, I'm going to get to that part as well. I don't personally think that like me looking for ethical clothing or whatever you think is like ethical clothing on my fucking cobalt mine using iPhone and my fucking computer is actually going to move the needle in a dramatic capacity. Okay? Bro thinks you got to stand in a store researching a company for a shirt like 30 minutes just not to get the shirt because every single one you're doing is unethical for every shirt. Yeah. It's one that I consider to be a foolhardy project because I don't even personally believe in it. Like, I don't think you should be researching. I don't think it's normal. I think that is an abnormal request. Surely there are people that do that. I'm sure. Maybe. Okay. But ultimately, that's still a ridiculous level of like attention to detail. If you consider that to be a sustainable lifestyle, and I'm not engaging in it because I think that I'm not engaging in it, and that makes me somehow a hypocrite, then yeah, I guess I am. Chatters think canceling their favorite streamer for buying a Gucci shirt is politics. The left is fucking cooked. Yes. I've done this song and dance personally. Even the EU brands I wear now and the dyes and machines, the shipping, etc., it's all unethical in the end. This system is fundamentally broken. Yes. Because ultimately what it comes down to is, why are you... I mean, it's no different than you claim to be a socialist and yet you have an iPhone. That's where it comes down to. That's literally where it comes down to. And it also is a ridiculous expectation for an ultimately foolhardy endeavor. Like, let's say I go to any shop I go to and I spend 35 minutes on each individual brand that I like. I go into a store, I like a t-shirt, I put it on, I'm like, wow, this fucking fits me. Okay. Then I try to source where the shirt was made, how the materials were sourced, and if there was, and search the ethics of every single fucking aspect of it. The brand you like gallery department says it's made in the USA, but I can't find where the shirt blanks come from. Like, how does anyone find out when it's not Googleable? There's also that part as well. Okay. Ultimately, this argument comes down to, I don't like Gucci and I don't like that you bought a Gucci shirt. And I've never said that like buying a Gucci shirt is ideological. Seems like you really are a capitalist. I guess it does. If you think that it is, when you're talking to someone who literally works with the largest unionized garment manufacturer in the fucking nation, who has actually literally broken their garment manufacturing systems due to the high volume that was necessary to sell unionized garments. Okay, you're going to lose this conversation, 10 times out of 10. Because listen, none of you motherfuckers do this anyway, and it's a total cop-out to say, well, why doesn't Hassan do it? He has the fucking time and the capacity to do it. No, I don't. That is ridiculous. It is a ridiculous thing to just like go to a store and be like, let me Google every single aspect of this fucking shirt. Where the yarn that they were using, was that ethically sourced? Like, no, of course not. Ultimately, it still comes down to, you can't fucking change the system, so you're crying about what a Twitch streamer has purchased. Also, ironically, a lot of those expensive clothes that I get, that I purchase, are more ethical. I don't buy it because it's more ethical, but that is the reality. That's the reality that the merchandise that I, for example, sell is more expensive than the average streamer merch because it's made in the United States and it's domestically fucking manufactured. You know what I mean? Anyway, it was priced at nearly $2,000. It sold out straight away. If you're a techware head who happens to be a fan of Hideo Kojima, you might as well consider a vital organ on the dark web to afford one at resale. That's why I didn't even bring up the Porsche thing until, you know, this argument was brought up. But like, it's a more ethically created fucking vehicle. You know what I mean? Serious question. Why do you keep talking about this? I get educating people, but there are hundreds of YouTube videos talking about this. Like, it gets annoying? No. This shit is why I see your reasoning of declining the fashion show invitation. Yeah, exactly. This is the most peak radical liberal individualist shit ever. These people will never have actual solidarity with victims of imperialism if they think this is praxis. Yeah, that's what it is. It's powerlessness. Even if you recognize that the world is like completely fucked, okay? Even if you recognize that, you're basically powerless to fight against those systems, so you just hyper focus on a Twitch streamer.
People, we shouldn't do that. And although he likes to think of himself as some normie, none of us are going to attain that lifestyle or that wealth, and none of us are going to be able to afford to spend that money on things that are made in exploitative ways. So if you are showing the world, like, I am a socialist, here is socialism, I still think you can do that by being a normal guy, buying yourself nice clothes. I'm not even saying don't buy yourself nice clothes, but I just think the excessiveness of it all and going...
No, exactly. This is like, he is saying that, though. He's saying that, like, it doesn't meet my standard. And it doesn't meet the standards of, like, many people. You didn't have this until a few years ago and you're 30. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, I didn't have access to this shit anyway. Buy nice but not designer is again, like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You're just making the train wrecks argument in a slightly nicer way.
Overboard. I think it's a bit much in my opinion. I'm a bit nihilistic as well in my outlook, and I'm a bit pessimistic. So I don't think, like, the individual being better really affects things.
I watched this because I don't think he's like a bad person. I think he's like maybe a little bit misguided. And I think he's like, in his mind, making constructive criticism. But I have yet to meet someone, I mean this with all sincerity, I've yet to meet someone who's been able to make this criticism that, like, fits the bill, that actually makes sense, that isn't, like, inherently contradictory. Because, like, if you have a decent understanding of socialism, which I suspect the Cavernical has, then you do understand that, like, it's virtually impossible to arrive at ethical consumption under capitalism. And when you do that, turning around and, like, trying to cut out a specific carve out for, like, a Gucci shirt that a Twitch streamer purchased is always going to be inherently contradictory to the argument that you're making, especially when you're wearing a jersey that was made by, you know, a child slave in Bangladesh. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, okay, what is this then? Like, you're engaging in the same hypocrisies. And ultimately, I guess the best thing you can do is, like, set this arbitrary boundary and say, right here is the cutoff. As much money as I make and how I spend it, okay? And then anything above that is actually fucked up. And at that point, it's just like, okay, well, we're sweating the small stuff. You know what I mean? He mentioned that. He knows that he agrees, Lamau. Oh my God, this is so frustrating. He disagrees, and that's fine. Chat are being incredibly uncharitable. No, that's my point as well, though. It's like, the ultimately, at a certain point, if we are in agreement on this issue, on the broader subject matter, then it's just a disagreement over, like, I don't like your shirt. The issue I guess I have with it is that saying I don't like your shirt is fine. Saying I don't like your shirt because it's like done with third world slave labor, as though it's the only shirt that's been done, created by third world slave labor, is what I have an issue with. Like, it's not a moral decision in that regard. Does that make sense? And I think that ultimately it is completely irrelevant to the grand scheme of things.
Logic with it is about personal values and feeling good about yourself and living true to your values. So that's why I do it, because I'm well aware a lot of my individual choices don't mean anything. And I'm well aware I'm outnumbered by all the capitalists who love consuming, who aspire to excessive consumption. So I don't know if this will really make much of a difference, but it's a good way to live with myself in that I tell everyone my values, I promote my values as something good to aspire to. I'd be a bit of a hypocrite if I didn't try most of the time to live my values. And like I said, we're all hypocrites in some ways, we all fail, but trying is important, I feel like, and especially if you have an audience. And now I want to talk about like the ethics generally, because it's kind of like class based as well. So for someone...
Wait, what? I don't understand it. Okay, I actually don't understand the point here then. Because he just said he's also in violation of his own values regularly. I mean, as you know, he's wearing that shirt, also made by child labor. But then this, doesn't that completely, I don't get it. I think he said he knows that him trying makes him better. But in this regard, excessive consumption is arbitrary. It's excessive consumption within your means, within his means. He is engaging in excessive consumption within his means, recognizes the hypocrisy. I'm doing that within my means, and I recognize the hypocrisy, so I guess that makes it better. I don't really understand.
Unlike me,
I gotta bring
who's more privileged and a more privileged Westerner, I don't make like really great money from YouTube, but I'm not a poor person. So I'm in a position to be ethical as much as possible. Like, I have that privilege to actually be an ethical consumer when I want to be. And that is just not possible for a lot of people, because if you are living paycheck to paycheck, you don't care where the food comes from. You don't care where the clothes come from. There's a reason things like Primark are so popular in the UK, because it's like a budget clothing company. And I'm not going to tell someone who goes shopping there that you're a terrible person, because if you need to buy clothes, you're just going to buy clothes. And that's another point of privilege. But I guess what you have to argue and tell people who might be in that situation is you just got to kind of condition them over to leftism and realize that the people who make these clothes, even though you're in a poor position yourself, are actually in a far worse position, because that's the inequality of global capitalism. And maybe using that example to try and get people over to a left-wing way of thinking, so that actually it is more of us who can affect change. And there's one more thing I do want to talk about as well, is I think corporations love this ethical consumer garbage. Do you know why? Because they shift all the blame from themselves onto us. So the reason that all these corporations like pollute the world so much more than individuals, that's actually our fault. It's our fault because we buy their products. If you stop buying their products, then that will solve the problem. But also, if you start buying from the corporations who greenwash stuff and they say, well, we're environmentally friendly and stuff like that, then you can feel better about yourselves. And they love that as well as a marketing trick. But the simple fact is, ethical consumption, no matter how many of us do it, is never really going to be enough because of the capitalist system we live in, which allows corporations to basically buy our democracy and get away with all these things, get away with insane pollution, get away with toxic chemical spills, get away with toxic oil spills, get away with all these things because they buy our politicians, they buy the law, they're above the law. And they like to say, well, if you don't like it, go to another company. Or if you're like Elon Musk, like, oh, buy the electric cars, save the planet. But for people like that, it's just a marketing gimmick to enrich themselves. And people like Elon Musk with their Tesla car factories, they perpetuate the unequal global capitalist system. That's why Teslas are made by cheaper laborers in China, right? So you can't fall for greenwashing all the time, because people like Elon Musk love to do it. And are they making the world a better place? Are they stopping pollution? Are they doing any of these things because we have an expensive electric car that most people can't afford? No. So they're all things to keep in mind. And like I said at the start, this video isn't, this is how left-wing people should feel about consumerism. This is how people should feel about materialism, because I didn't want it to be that. Because I know, based on everyone's perspective, we will have a different relationship to materialism. We'll have a different relationship to consumer capitalism, like we all have different relationships to various different things. And I'm not going to judge people too harshly. We're all trying to survive in this hellscape. I'm not saying you're a terrible person if you buy fast fashion, designer fashion, if you excessively buy things like tech, which you know is probably made in an unethical way. That's the reason the saying exists in the first place, that there is no ethical consumption. But we shouldn't take that, like we've been saying, to mean buy whatever and don't think about it. Because like I've been saying throughout the video, it's all about personal value. It's all about like living your morals and trying to aspire to be this better person who...
Yeah, this basically wrapped up neatly in a way where it like I find inherently contradictory. I don't agree with I don't know why he made a whole video, because like the end of it literally comes along with him admitting that he's a hypocrite, and he is in recognition of like how you can't really live by your own values. And that yeah, I don't know. I mean, openly even recognizing that like corporations engage in like fake pandering, greenwashing initiatives and things like that. Hayır. Alayım mı? Chicken plate? Hot chicken plate? Sweet green? Okay. I think he's trying to do a lot less than chat thinks he's doing. Just saying to keep it in mind. That's all. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, but this is the same as the girl who wrote an essay about not going to a Taylor Swift concert. Kind of, but also ultimately, it's a good video. He likes you. I mean, I agree with the ending of his video, but I don't really know why this part exists in the video of like my materialism, because like the final conclusion basically undermines the argument that like I'm engaging in the like extraordinary amounts of unethical consumption that everybody understands is like impossible to avoid. His point is that there's no ethical consumption is not an excuse not to try, not saying that you don't. Yeah, but if I had that kind of perspective, again, like, if I thought that it was like perfectly sustainable and normal, and I could make like these choices, and those choices actually had a good impact, I would do it. You know what I mean? He makes the argument and then makes the argument dismantling his argument by parroting what you said about living within your means. He just does it from a I don't like Gucci shorts angle. Literally none of this matters, and it's why we teach dialectical materialism when we talk about Marxism. This shit does not matter. The conversation does, though. It's important to walk through all of this. This video would have been good if it was delivered by a non-British person. Yeah. His problem isn't your consumption, but the promotion of consumption, I guess. His main issue seems to be just everyone is going to do it, so why not? Yeah, but the problem with that is that, like, you can literally turn that argument on him, which is like him wearing a fucking jersey. You know what I mean? Like he's quite literally wearing a jersey that was, I don't know what brand it is, like Adidas, Nike, doesn't matter. These jerseys are done in even worse factory conditions. I disagree that you don't have the means to seek out less exploitative products. Like iPhone is reasonable because it has utility. I'm not asking you to stand in a store and do hours of research, but I think you have more means than most. I'm sure then people would just say you're virtue signaling and maybe doesn't do shit, but why not then? But you just made my point. I'm live fucking 10 hours a day. What do you want me to do? Not fucking make content that I'm making and instead spend time like, I don't know, figuring out what companies are ethical or sustainable, ultimately to like what? Buy sustainable clothing? It's useless. Like, I already don't buy Shine. You know what I mean? I don't buy H&M. And the ASOS things that I own, I wear to this fucking day. So like, what's the argument? Yeah, I'm buying expensive clothing because it's ethical. Could be something I could say. You know what I mean? Is how you say it? Shine, whatever. Does that make sense? This is why people think you don't handle criticism well. You get invalid criticism that they think is valid, and you disagree with it, so they call you out for not taking it well. When 9 out of 10 times the original criticism was based on the criticizer not understanding the concepts being criticized. Yeah. Not sure you caught a stray on this one. I think, I'll be real, I think it's because my name draws clicks usually, and I think you wanted to write a larger point, I guess, about like how we should try to make more ethical choices with our consumption, even though there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. And I think he just wanted to use me as a way to get clicks off of it. That's it. People are trying to push the responsibility onto you for something they don't even do themselves. Yes. And part of the reason why you don't do it yourself is because like you're either a liberal and completely misunderstand it, or you're a leftist and are somehow behaving like a liberal in that regard, because the way to stop this dead in its tracks does not revolve around your individual consumption choices that you make. That is, if it's even available. Like, you go ethical and sustainable clothing, but like, let me explain to you something, okay? I need you to understand something. I'm willing to bet, I didn't even look at this, right? I'm willing to bet that this in and of itself is probably a liberal NGO that created this. Meaning, they do not care about the labor part of the ethics of it, as long as it's not child slave labor. Okay? Like, this is literally greenwashing, which he personally addressed in his video. What is valid criticism about you then? I don't know. Maybe you can find one yourself and we can talk about it. You know what my valid criticism is? Okay, valid criticism about me is that I'm too hot-headed. I have a capacity to constantly want people to like me, even outside of my circles, even outside of people that that appreciate my content. I want all my haters to like give me charitability and actually fucking focus on what I'm saying. I'm way too online. I get derailed a lot. I get stun locked a lot. I get super fucking mad. I I yell at random chatters sometimes that don't deserve it. You know what I mean? Okay, fair, because you can't say that the people who critique you are wrong just because they do it dumb. Wait, what? Okay, you're for example, currently you're testing my patience. But right now, but I'm not going to yell at you. But like, you know, people can make wrong criticisms, okay? People can make dumb criticisms. I think that the argument on like how I should live off of your understanding of what socialism should be, and this is usually like what 90% of arguments revolve around. That's what it devolves into, right? Is silly. I think that that's a dumb argument, and people do make dumb arguments regularly. That's like the overwhelming majority of the dumb arguments. Bro, you're reading it wrong. Chill. Does that make sense? And a big part of what I do, if we are to look at not like the broader industry, okay, but simply entertainment, content creation, I'm in the sewers. I deal with shit. That's it. Twitch streamers are insanely accessible. And therefore, a big part of the content that Twitch streamers create is just constantly addressing, oftentimes, uncharitable mischaracterizations. So, I do that every day. I do it every day, nonstop. It is impossible. Look, Hassan, only I decide how I can be criticized. Everything else is invalid and probably bad. This is a great example of what I was, the point I was making just now, and this person perfectly became an example. You know what I mean? It is impossible for me to avoid criticism. There is, however, a difference in you know, not being good to take criticism, like not doing a good job dealing with criticism, versus like having to deal with this all day, every day. So when I actually end up banning chatters like this, they will continue stating that despite the fact that I'm doing this hundreds of thousands of times a week, literally hundreds of thousands of times a week, think about that. And on certain circumstances, maybe I'm getting upset and fucking clicking on shit. That makes up their perspective on the matter. They're like, oh, Hassan's a bad guy. This person did not come in here with a charitable approach. They didn't. Because you're a rich socialist and on face value, that's what's off-putting to most people. True, I used to hate you. You're just stubborn, but it's whatever. It's not the same, bro. What the fuck? Like, I think you probably still hate me. Maybe look within your heart.
Damn, this guy's good.